Alex Nguyen is the Senior Agricultural Inspector for Sonoma County Department of Agricultural Weights and Measures. And today he will be talking about certification and training, C&T requirements, regulation changes. And with that, I'll let Alex share. Alex, you're muted.
Thanks, Cindy. We're trying to sort things out here real quick. Let me get my presentation up. Let's see. Okay. Can you see my screen, Cindy?
I see a Zoom screen. I don't see, you didn't choose your PowerPoint screen.
Oh, did I not do that? Let me can you see it now?
No, it is Zoom screen. When you go down to share screen, it usually gives you multiple options, versions of your screen that you can share. And then you have to toggle the one that has your PowerPoint. There you go.
How about now? Perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Thanks, Cindy. And no, thanks for having us here. Thank you to my colleague, Misty, for giving a great presentation on the field worker inspection. Today, you know, I have the privilege to present to you about some upcoming regulation changes concerning certification and training requirements that affect all of you, because all of you hold some sort of certification and some sort of training. My presentation, unfortunately, isn't going to be too photo heavy, and it's going to be like this for the next couple of years as these new regulations roll out. So again, I hope folks bear with me. Hope folks bear with all of us as we approach these new changes together. So with that, I'm going to start off by talking about the differences in the scope of work that's allowed to be done under each of these certifications and licenses. That's the PAC, the QAC, and the QAL. For most of you, this is a reminder, but I hope this information is useful for those who wish to better understand kind of the regulatory nuances with the differences between each of these, and for those of you who may be interested in pursuing a different or higher level licenses, I hope hopefully this is useful for you in the course of your professional development. So again, one of you likely hold one of these qualifications. That's why you're all here today. By maintaining any of these qualifications, you're considered a trained pesticide handler. So if you are an employee of an organization, they may want you to get one of these to keep up with the regulations and be considered trained as you handle and pesticide products and do pesticide applications. So the first qualification here is the private applicator certificate. So this certificate is defined in regulation and is only appropriate for those who supervise the use of a restricted pesticide for purposes of producing an agricultural commodity on property owned, leased, or rented, right, by themselves or their employer. These are not spray licenses, and these are not spray permits. We get those terms a lot, we get those questions a lot, and I want to make it clear that these are not licenses and these are permits. The PAC, the brown card alone, does not allow individuals to purchase pesticides, right? Many production agriculture operations encourage their employees who may not be handling a restricted product to pursue this PAC to ensure that they're keeping up with competencies and required to perform pesticide applications and or trained other staff and field workers in pesticide safety. The PAC, the brown card, is administered through the County Agricultural Commissioner's Office. And that's oftentimes when we see most of you, is when you renew this or come in to take the initial exam. So, so the private applicator definition in the regulation is in part why the use of sulfur dioxide, right, to sterilize wine barrels and corks is outside the scope of this certificate, right? Wine barrels and corks are not defined as agricultural commodities. The next kind of certification that one may get is a QAC, right? The Qualified Applicator Certificate. A person who needs a QAC essentially is anyone who supervises or applies restricted pesticides on property that is not owned, leased, or rented by themselves or their employer, and does not meet the definition of what a private applicator is. Commercial applicator qualifications allow an individual to conduct work in specialized categories, right? It's important to remember that anyone, one is only permitted to do work in that particular scope of the category that they are qualified to work in. Any work outside, conducted outside of this scope is considered unlicensed work. So within the QAC, there's a unique subcategory for maintenance gardener, subcategory Q, right? So this is the only certification that allows, this is the part of the QAC that allows QAC holders with a subcategory Q to apply for the special maintenance gardener pest control business, where pest control is only incidental to their primary work of mowing, blowing grass, right? Any work beyond that, that's not incidental, a person would need to pursue the full pest control business license through acquiring the QAL. The QAL, Qualified Applicator License, essentially has the same scope as the QAC, except it allows for individuals to apply for the pest control business license. So if anyone in the audience is thinking about forming their own pest control business, the QAL is really the first step of that. Again, it has categories and subcategories that allow for the pest control business to operate in specialized work. These are commercial applicator certifications, and they're administered through the state at DPRs. So more information on them can be found at the DPR's website, and all the application paperwork is processed through them, not at the agricultural commissioners level. So who needs a qualification, right? I know Misty just went over some field worker training and who's able to train. And essentially, those who want to train handlers or field workers need to hold some sort of certification. So in the production agriculture setting for pesticide handlers, only those that are qualified through QAL, QAC, a PAC, PCAs, professional foresters, UC extension advisors, and county ag staff, and any other person qualified through a DPR training program is able to train a unqualified, uncertified pesticide handler. Again, like Misty said, training records now require, actually has been required for a while now, that the trainer disclose his or her qualification right on that record, so we know we know how they're able to train. So again, DPR and your local ag department should have templates of this. So reach out to us if you need that. 3 CCR 6724 breaks down these requirements. So we're not making this up. This is in regulation and has been for a while now. 6724, 3 CCR 6724 also describes what topics an employee who's handling pesticides need to be trained on. So these topics include routes of exposure, signs, symptoms, decontamination, environmental concerns such as what is drift, and employees' rights to know. I wanted to throw out there that any employee that has been trained and has a training record to handle pesticides is considered trained to be a field worker in a treated field. Training for a handler exceeds the training scope for field workers. So if any of you out there that is wondering, your employees that are trained as a pesticide handler are considered trained as field workers as well. For those of you who outsource training, ensure that training records are compliant with 6724. I know there's a lot of different companies out there, a lot of different businesses who make it their mission to train different organizations. But make sure they're compliant with the regulations. These regulations do change. There's some nuances. Some training companies might be outside the state and may not be aware of California's requirements and just train on the federal requirements, which may not meet what we have here in California. So, so with that, I kind of want to get into the meat and potatoes of this presentation, which is these upcoming changes that affect all of your certifications and how we're moving forward with that. Right. So federal law. So this is just a little background. Federal law allows states to maintain their own pesticide regulatory programs, right? As long as states' requirements are not less restrictive than federal law. This means that as federal law changes, states' programs must adjust through their own legislative process and regulatory changes process to realign with the US EPA at the federal level, right? So the purpose of these upcoming changes that we're all going to be seeing is to keep California's licensing and certification requirements in compliance with the federal requirements outlined in 40 CFR Code of Federal Regulations, Part 171, that addresses the certification of pesticide applicators. 40 CFR Part 171 outlines the minimum requirements state agencies must meet to be compliant. And this federal process began in 2017, right? So prior to 2017, 40 CFR Part 171 had not undergone a revision since 1974, so 43 years. So this is the first major revision in 43 years to the federal code. These regulatory changes will be some of the most impactful we've seen in recent history. California's regulatory framework impacts users of restricted materials and general use pesticides, so it's a bit unique. So those that, all persons that use pesticides in California will be impacted somehow. And this will affect industry and regulatory entities alike. The Agricultural Commissioner System and DPR right now are in the process of pushing this information out to industry and getting feedback on what challenges may be out there and to make the process a bit easier. But this is a process that will happen and is happening right now. So the goal of the upcoming regulatory changes is to improve the competency standards for certified applicators. Certified applicators are those that hold qualifications that we just went over. So let's go to the next slide here. So some key changes that will apply to commercial applicator categories, and I'll expand on that down the road. Some of the commercial applicator categories that will be impacted will be the new soil fumigation category, right? This will replace the current QAL and QAC field fumigation category O. This new soil fumigation subcategory L will replace the subcategory O. Within this change, a new soil fumigation category will be created, and it'll impact those industries that do do fumigations on soil and non-soil. There'll be also changes to the private applicator. The private applicator certificate will, the current one, the current exam will not meet the requirements set forth in 40 CFR Part 171, right? Current PAC holders took an exam that essentially is being phased out. As current PAC holders, you will be phased in to these new competencies as your certificates expire. Everyone will ultimately be required to take the new initial PAC exam upon their renewal. So it doesn't matter when you got your PAC, it doesn't matter when you want to get your PAC, everyone will end up taking the new initial PAC exam one day, right? So this is where we stand. Current PACs can be renewed on CE, but there will be a point where CE credits will not meet the new requirements, and you'll just have to take the new initial exam through the Ag Commissioner's office. PAC holders that use fumigants to control burrowing vertebrate pests will now be required to be certified in a category of the PAC and this category will go live on January 1, 2024. And I'll expand on that in a few slides here. So here we go. So this is where we are at. So this is what the changes may look like going forward for those holding a PAC. For those with a PAC expiring at the end of this year, right? Those are with the last names I through Q. You actually have the option to renew your PAC with CE hours or with the PAC renewal exam. This will give you a renewed PAC that expires in 2025. After that, the renewal exam won't exist anymore for those that choose to renew this year with a CE or PAC renewal exam. You will have to take the new initial exam that meets the federal requirements to continue renewing your PAC and have that expire in 2028. Currently, we strongly encourage people to take the new initial exam now, and that's that pathway on the bottom. If those of you opt to renew your PAC by taking the PAC initial exam now, you can continue on with getting CE credits or renewing through a new renewal exam later on. So take some time to kind of digest this, these two pathways to renewing and continuing a PAC exam. So 40 CFR Part 171 expanded competency standards for private applicators. Because of this new expansion, all private applicators need to meet this new competency level at some point. And this is why we're at this junction where we're at right now, right? Current PAC holders essentially have not met these revised federal standards. Another way to look at this and to break it down is that PAC holders, the last name of R through Z that expire December 31st, 2023, must take and pass the revised examination by January 1, 2024. Everyone with the last names A through H that expire December 31st, 2024 will have to take the revised exam by January 1, 2025. And those with I through Q going forward that expire December 31st, 2025 must take the new exam by January 1, 2026 to maintain certification. Hopefully some of that is clear. I'll be around to take questions afterwards about that. But those are kind of the meat and potatoes of this whole presentation. So again, 40 CFR Part 171 requires private applicators using fumigants to be specially certified, right, for fumigant use. When I mean fumigants, we're talking about situations where aluminum phosphide is used for vertebrate pest control. So states are allowed to establish a private applicator certificate option, and this is what California and DPR has opted to do to meet these new federal requirements. So all private applicators using fumigant products, such as aluminum phosphide, will need to obtain the appropriate certification for their fumigant use activities by the implementation of the proposed regulations to remain in compliance, essentially January 1, 2024. If a private applicator is using any other type of fumigant product, then those labeled for vertebrate pest control, they must obtain a commercial applicator certificate. That's a QAC or QAL. We don't really know what this looks like yet. We're still waiting on kind of the bits and pieces from DPR, some guidance from the state DPR to see how this will be implemented. But this is on the horizon. Those using aluminum phosphide or vertical pest control will need to be specially certified for that activity. A PAC alone and a restricted materials permit will not qualify you to use that product in that fashion. So we have a new study guide. The old study guide, the old brown book paperback will not meet these new requirements. Those of you interested in taking this new initial exam or initially getting your PAC will need to study off of this new study guide. This manual is published by the University of California, and you can find that at online through these QR codes. There's an electronic version that's published and I think posted through Google Books that you can use to reference. I think the digital version is a bit cheaper than the hard copy, but you will need to use this new study guide to study for your exam. Right. These changes will not affect how many hours you need in CE to renew your private applicator certificate. Right. These CE hours are prorated, and many of you usually fall in this first category where you have had your PAC valid for 24 to 36 months, where you need 6 hours of CE that includes 2 hours of laws and regs. So these requirements have not changed. Those of you that just applied for your PAC and have only had it for less than 12 months are exempt from CE hours. So in the future, CE courses you will find may present a broader set of topics, right, that meet this federal competency requirements. CE hours are still expected to be taken while the PAC is valid. Any hours taken before obtaining the PAC or after PAC is expired cannot be used for renewal purposes. And these are, if you think about it, these are minimum requirements. So at the Agriculture Commissioner Office, we absolutely would still encourage people to attend CE courses, whether they need it or not, especially now as these new requirements are rolling in, just to keep on top of the changes. For commercial applicators, in this region, those that use sulfur dioxide will be most impacted by this. So again, as 40 CFR 171, as the state tries to align with that federal requirement, subcategory P in microbial pest control will be phased out. So those that hold a commercial applicator's certificate using sulfur dioxide will need to reapply and retake in the right category. That will be subcategory M that doesn't exist yet, that will come live in 2024 for non-soil fumigation. So kind of pay attention to that if you have any operations in dealing with wine barrels and corks that use sulfur dioxide. This is something that will definitely impact you. Subcategories are being eliminated. Category L and M will be added. So those in wood preservation, anti-fouling paints and coatings, sewer line root control, field fumigation, and microbial pest control will be eliminated. So those that hold those subcategories will need to reapply it and retake some in the right category for their work. So as we approach these regulatory changes, the best resource will be through DPR's pesticide regulation website. Your county agriculture commissioner's office will also be keeping up on the changes as they unfold, but you can read the raw documentation on these changes here. There you'll find the language of the proposed regulations in their raw and current format. and you'll also find a lot of cleanup language as DPR takes this opportunity to clean up a lot of the existing regulations. DPR has published a YouTube video which officially outlines these regulatory changes that we discussed here today. I also encourage you to take a look at that if in the event any of my information contradicts the official message. So there's the link to the YouTube video. Have you guys take a look at that, and we'll put that in the chat and answer any of your questions as we get them. Here's again the link and information about the new study guide manual for the PAC exam. And I think that is kind of the bulk of the information we've got. Kind of on the horizon, DPR has proposed regulations for 1,3-D, a soil fumigant that many use to control nematodes and other soil-borne pathogens. I just wanted to throw that out there. Their public comment period starts this Friday, November 18th, and goes until January 18th. So if you have interest in using 1,3-D in the future, there will be some changes in how things are done. So public comment period, make your voice heard there. I'm really basically wrapping up. Thanks to everyone who showed up at our latest Recycling Day event. Thank you to Wilbur Ellis for hosting the space. We had 69 participants attend this year, and we're processing the plastic right now. But just kind of looking at the pile, it seems to be greater than what we had last year, which was 14,000 pounds. So we'll get the number out there to you, or give us a call if you want the numbers. Reach out, give me a call, shoot me an email. There's a lot of changes on the horizon. We're trying to keep up with them ourselves, and we'll try our best to get you the information that you need to know to maintain your licenses. That pretty much wraps it up.